Welcome everyone to our inaugural show of Green Source on the Air. Green Source on the Air is a direct product of the great work that Julie does at Green Source DFW and our online newsletter and environmental newspaper. But with everybody still, not allowed to have in person, we thought this was a way that the green community could come together. And obviously without Julie and Carl and the whole team and people you're going to hear from tonight, none of this would be possible. So what's that saying? It really does take a community. Well, this really does take a community, and we're glad you're with us tonight. In working on this concept, we've been putting it together for about 6 months, and during that 6 months, the concept has morphed a little bit. It started out with we were try to do more hard news, somewhere around Frontline or 60 Minutes or whatever. But frankly, I think a lot of us are kind of zoomed out, and I know we're bad newsed out. And so we have changed what we're thinking about doing and what we're going to try to do, which is sort of the lighter side, more of the human interest side, but get all of our listeners a taste of what's going on and get them important information so they can make their own decisions and hopefully can help Rita and all of our people down in the legislature try to do the right thing. So we're not quite there, but and this will be a cultural reference that some of our younger listeners may not understand, but we're leaning more toward a later version of National Lampoon Radio Hour, which of course morphed into the current Saturday Night Live. So we won't be doing any comedy skits, but again, sometimes the stress that we all have is it's gotten to us, and we need to smile and we need to enjoy the beautiful world and nature that we're trying to save. If you don't enjoy it, you've really missed out. So our timing is going to be, we're going to try to do it the third Thursday of every month. This month it's technically the fourth Thursday, but because it fell on Earth Day, then that was the perfect time for us to do our kickoff. Another thing I've talked about and I've thought about is I think what our venue, our concept is going to be what I would call a fireside chat for tree huggers. So we're going to do that's what we're doing, a fireside chat for tree huggers. And but that's also could be something I used in my little camping book, which is Voices from the Campfire. We all understand a lot of our current issues, but the environmental history that we have is long and pretty complex. And so at various times at every month, we're going to be looking back a little bit at what previous environmental activists and battlers have gone through. And so we're going to have fireside chat for tree huggers and Voices from the Campfire. So we have to do important business first. Green Source on the Air. We are saving the planet one listener at a time. What we're trying to do is a collaboration of all of our different groups and our individuals so that they can not only communicate through Green Source DFW, Julie's baby, but then we also can communicate through Green Source on the Air. Give you a brief preview of what we're going to be doing tonight is that we're going to start out in just a few minutes. We're going to have Marcia Jackson, a Dallas environmental injustice activist, and she won the Green Source Environmental Justice Award last year. And what I call Marcia is she is now an environmental rock star, whether she wants to be or not. We were talking before we started, Marcia's situation found her. The fame found her, and I'm obviously, I think a lot of us are interested in hearing her story. We'll also have Amy Martin, one of our Green Source DFW columnist, and she will be talking about her new book, Wild DFW. We will have Rita Beving, who will be giving us the latest and greatest or worse news from the legislature in Austin is meeting. As some people have obviously have often said, is that thank goodness the legislature only meets every 2 years. Hopefully that limits the damage they can do, but we'll let Rita tell you that story. Victoria Howard will be with us. She is the co-chair of the Dallas Sierra Club Conservation Committee. And I don't know if we're going to have her co-chair Renee with us, Roberson, but we'll hope to have her too. And then we'll finish up the night with a musical performance by Justin Sherborne and his band that I've renamed. He hasn't accepted it yet. Justin Sherborne and the Texas Tree Huggers. And we will be watching their entire performance from 2019, The Legend of Big Ben. By the time we get to that, everybody can just forget about the screen if they want to, although there is some good visual. Turn the sound up and get that bottle of wine and enjoy the rest of the evening. So that's the lineup as it stands now. Let's go back to sponsors. Carl, sorry about that. Did I mess you up?
We're good. We're good.
Carl's pretty amazing. All right. We have really big news for Green Source on the Air. Dallas College, which is formerly DCCD, has become our title sponsor for Green Source on the Air. Not only does that give us the financial base that we can, make it through the whole year. Obviously, we want other people to sponsor, but they have given us the funds to get through a full year of Green Source on the air. But the other thing they're giving us is they are a window to the next generation. Dallas College, has 7, 8, 9 campuses. I lose track sometimes, but it's a big operation, and they do a fantastic job educating the next generation of environmentalists. But the main thing that I think they do is they emphasize sustainability. They are really, really into that. And Georgianne Moss, our wonderful friend there, is the director. Brandon Howard, our friend from North Lake, is also heavily into the environmental and sustainability movement. So they've always been a sponsor, but I want us to give a super welcome to Georgianne, Brandon, and Dallas College as our title sponsor of Green Source on the Air. And I guess we can clap. And because that is awesome. Our other sponsors are, some of the people you all know and love. Certainly anyone that's been around here for a while knows that John and Margie Haley have been the bedrock of support for the entire environmental movement. Dallas Sierra Club, Green Source, so many different causes. John and Margie Haley have been beyond generous. And in fact, Margie Haley was one of the founders of Green Source DFW. She was one of the people involved in the original think tank that put that together. Our friends at Earthx, Karen Flagg, they also have been a major sponsor. They are our banner sponsor for Green Source DFW. So Earthx, very important to us. They are also having an event tonight. But it is Earth Day, so that's okay. But they're having their first in-person event down at Clyde Warren Park. So we obviously wish them well, and we will continue this entire year to work with Earthx. And as you may know, some of you may not, we now have Earthx TV. They are running 2 channels, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with awesome environmental programming. So be sure to tune in to Earthx TV and see what they're doing. They have a small membership you can join so that you get all the notices of what they're showing. I don't have any inside information, but I have a good feel that I think something really big is going to happen with Earthx TV and Earthx. We all know that Trammell does not think small, and neither do his people. So I think you just need to keep a watch on Earthx TV this year. Our next sponsor is, again, a longtime sponsor of Green Source DFW, and that's Dallas Sierra Club. Dallas Sierra Club is about 4,000 members and in the Dallas area, and they just do wonderful work. They certainly have been hampered by COVID, but we're all chomping at the bit at Dallas Sierra Club to get released so that we can go back to outings and having meetings and doing the things that Dallas Sierra Club likes to do. Our newest sponsor is, do we have one for Stephen F? Did we get a slide in for them?
No, we just came in this week. I don't have a slide.
That's fine. I didn't want to forget it. We have now made a really good connection with Stephen F. Austin State University down in Nacogdoches, where my sister graduated. They have always been very strong in sustainable forestry and other. They figured out long ago that if you cut down all the trees, you don't have much of a forestry program, and so they are starting a new program. And I think, Julie, is this a master's level program, their newest program?
Yeah, I believe so. And also it is online. They have some undergraduate classes that are sustainable courses, and they are online. That's why they're targeting the DFW area.
Cool. Well, we welcome Stephen F. Austin. And again, they just like Dallas College, Stephen F. is a window to the next generation. And we want to really pursue that and keep those connections going. So how are we doing on time? We're almost on time, Julie. I should always mention that one of the most wonderful things about being at any environmental event is that you're with friends. And so we're glad you're here. And if we are a little off time schedule, then hopefully no one will hold that against us. So our first major guest is Marcia Jackson. Marcia, have you returned to us?
I am here.
Excellent. So if we can get a video up on Marcia. Oh, we have a nice picture though. That's excellent. Okay. There she is. Hi, Marcia.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being our inaugural guest. Our, like I say, I call you our environmental rock star, but I guess you were I don't know if you were reluctant, but certainly you got this role put on you whether you wanted it or not.
Thanks, Wendell. Thank you always for the invite, because of the great humor that you always have, and you just keep me full of joy every time we talk. So thank you for the invite, you and Julie.
Yeah, you are so welcome. You know, it's again, you know, sometimes what we have to do is serious business, and we have to get down to the street fighting, so to speak. But now it's time to celebrate, and we are so glad you're with us. Most of us have read some of the articles in the newspaper, but we wanted to have you on tonight to tell us a little bit about, you know, on the front lines, you know, when did you first know there was a problem? What happened down around your house that let you know something was going on?
January 2018, when I walked outside the door, right next door to me, where everybody now think that it's behind me, but it started right next door to me. Within 2 weeks, it became a mountain, and you'll be surprised how fast that grew, that tall.
Wow. And so for if it happened in 2 weeks, they were obviously bringing in some big truckloads.
Right. At first, it started out supposed to have been a U-Haul, then a wood chipper. And next thing we knew was shingles knocking down our fence right next door, less than 100 feet from my bedroom.
Now, the way I recall it, it was supposed to have been, they were supposed to be some kind of recycling business. And that was the story they were putting out, weren't they?
When they asked for the SUP, they said it was going to be a wood chipper. It wasn't never supposed to be a recycling company. Yeah. And when we first started sending them over there, they told us it was going to be a U-Haul, change from U-Haul to wood chipper. So the wood chipper began to be roof shingles, raw roof shingles from the house.
I see. So do we know, did they ever bring any wood chips in at all, or did it just, or was it
Nothing,
all shingles?
nothing besides wood pellets, what they had on there, but no, it was just raw roofing shingles, and people just be amazed how big it grew because it did just look like a mountain. And my kids' friends would come by and ask, Mom, when do you get the mountain over there? And I told them it's not a mountain. That's roofing shingles. It's really roofing shingles.
Oh my God. Did they ever, as far as you know, did they ever recycle any of the roofing shingles?
Actually, they had two mounts, which were next to it, and they were recycled, but it wasn't a good grade. They did go to the county. The county came over to look at it, but it wasn't a good grade of material to put on the street. That's what the whole thing was supposed to been doing. They supposed to been going to recycle it, use it for a street, and it just wasn't. It wasn't happening.
And so once they lost their market, then it just ended up literally in your backyard.
Actually, I think they were pulling it in. I don't think they really had a big idea of recycling anyway, because they wasn't selling it. But it was so much coming in that they was just getting the profit of
Right.
getting those roofing
Sure.
sections.
Yeah. Because somebody was paying them to come pick it up, and they just dumped it in your backyard.
They was paying them to come in and dump it. Yeah, they was charging people to dump it instead of going to the landfill.
Yeah, I'm looking at the photo we have up on the screen here on our yellow screen, and yeah, you can see the mountain in the background. It looks like looks like we were living in Colorado, or at least the hill country somewhere, doesn't it?
Now just imagine that behind me, or imagine next door to me, less than 100 feet. I was hearing all the front loaders beginning at 5 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, just pounding and pounding, the light shining in my bedroom. So just imagine hearing all that noise right next to you. Not only the noise start coming, then the pollutants start coming. Then there was the smut start coming in our filters in the house. And then that's the reason why you hear my voice, what it is now, to start having the effect on us on our voice. So, and I'll go ahead and apologize now if my voice get a little weak, but I still have the after effects out of almost 3 years from that.
Wow. So obviously what did it smell like? It must have smelled like asphalt. I mean, it smelled like you would smell
Oh,
out on a road crew.
it smelled horrible all all during the daytime, nighttime. But when it's really, really hot outside, the temperature was really hot. It smelled just like pavement burning.
Yeah.
And it was taking your breath.
Yeah, I mean, you occasionally be out on, driving your car, and you go past a paving crew putting down the black asphalt, and it goes right through your nose, and it's bad stuff.
It did. It just take your breath all the time. And then you got to imagine the little house that they did recycle, that was fiberglass flying. So that's the reason why I have the issue, because the fiberglass got off into your vocal cords and it started affecting my vocal cords. So I didn't know when I was going out, I started going back getting steroid shots, and I didn't know what was breaking my skin out, and then find out it was the fiberglass flying. So it wasn't only affecting me, it was affecting my neighbors and also the guys next door that was working also.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure the employees there, they had nothing to do with it. I'm sure they were suffering also. Uh,
Exactly. Even the vendor, the contractor, they have to remove the shingles when it was removed,
yeah.
he even has an issue with it because he was out there and it affected him. First thing I said, oh no, not the voice, because he's an opera singer, and he had to go in and settle down a few days also because he was having the same effect that I had. So just imagine within a couple of weeks that he started having these issues. So just imagine for 3 years that we have the same issues.
Amazing. Yeah, that's something that first was brought to everybody's attention, and we may not have time to talk about to Rita tonight, but when Rita Beving was fighting the cement kilns down in Midlothian, um, that was the problem. It wasn't just the smell; it was the particulate. I mean, there was
Exactly.
literally stuff in the air that people were breathing into their lungs.
Exactly. I was asked, is it just the beauty? No, it wasn't the beauty. It never have been the beauty of it. It's because of our health. Me, my neighbors, my family, and then it was even 2 or 3 streets over. That was having the same effect. The baby that had to go to the hospital, he stayed 3 blocks over from me. So just imagine all these 150,000 tons of shingles, and it was just blowing across the road and across the street in the neighborhood. So all that time it was being airborne, and we had it was nice enough. We had an anonymous donor that did send us some purifiers for the house, and that helped for a while. And after a while, it kept on getting stronger, so it stopped helping at all. So the headaches come with it, the throat, itching of the throat, and then I had to also go and have treatments, the voice therapy treatments, because of clearing the voice, and then my vocal cords are still inflamed. So just imagine what we really had to go through. People just look at it, it's a mountain. They didn't understand the fact that we were really affecting us.
Well, I can see how, especially on a windy day, and certainly Dallas does have windy days. It would be like a tornado of smell and particulate, blowing right through your house and obviously through your neighbor's house.
Exactly.
What so when you went to the I guess you went to the city of Dallas and you started investigating and complaining.
I try to be like a regular neighbor. I did 311, and by it only being me and my daughters here at first, I didn't want to know who sent it in. It was anonymous, and I told them they was using outside storage, but that nothing happened about that. So I didn't care about being anonymous anyway, because it started affecting me. And I am 63. I didn't want my kids to go through what I'm going through now. So I started calling again, and I still didn't. I kept following up on it. The case was closed, and I asked why were they closed. So I did call my councilman in March, and I never did get a phone call back from anything. So I kept on complaining. Then I went to a meeting in November. Well, September 2018, it rained so hard down here, and they started blocking up the creek. They blocked up all the creek with all those shingles and wood and poison trees. So our back just completely flooded down here. One of the ladies' horses died even after that. The 2 of them died when these shingles first came here. And after that, we complained about it. I took pictures. I called the fire department, and they had the same problem that we had also. But then I kept on complaining. I went to Highland Hills, had a meeting for lane plating, and I met Tamika DeRoe there, and I was talking about her. I said, y'all complain about this. What about my issues down here? And so she invited me to let Joppa breathe at the time. And then we went there, and then that's when we started talking, and Jim came out, and Robert came out and investigated. And what I was saying, everybody was just amused. They didn't really think this was really going on right here.
Well, like I say, you've made friends that you never knew about or you never thought you would meet, but
right.
You obviously found out that there are other people, certainly in the southern half of Dallas County, that have been facing this type of treatment for a lot of years. So so how did you get involved with Dallas Morning News and Robert Leblonsky?
Jim Sherbeck called Robert. And Robert called me and asked me, could he talk to me about what was going on? And I told him, sure. He said, I'm going to come out and take a few pictures. And when I came out, he saw I pass by here all the time. I just can imagine what I saw. So Robert came out and investigated. He wrote about 16 articles. The first articles when the city of Dallas came out. And that's when they gave them a citation for blocking up the creek there. And they had to clean the creek. Said they was going to make it beautify and everything, but it didn't happen. So after then, they gave them a citation and a temporary injunction. After then, in April, they came back and wasn't supposed to be working, but they worked anyway. So they were finally closed down in April 2019. But, after closing, yes, they closed, ceased business, but they left their mess down here with them, though. With us.
They that, as we were talking earlier, that's a pretty standard deal. You catch them violating the law with their hand in the cookie jar, and then certainly what they want to do is they want to disappear and go open up somewhere else, but they leave their pollution behind them.
Exactly. And didn't move not one little bit, none whatsoever.
Good grief. What so then you started trying to talk to the city about getting them to remove it?
Yes, we did. We went to talk to each city council person and try to get them to help understand what we were actually going through. And some of them said they understood what we was going through, but we were going to have to wait for a little while. And my thing was waiting. This is still affecting our health. You know, I understand everybody else had a plan, but still, this is affecting the residents' health. I began to be the spokesperson of my neighbors because this is a Black and brown community, and my neighbors felt like they were being retaliated on because the city was giving them a citation instead. So you're seeing my voice now instead of seeing my neighbors because they were really afraid. I didn't know what the background that they had, you know, their status, but we didn't want anybody retaliated on, and they suffered just like I did. So my voice is not just for me or for my family, it's for the whole community, residents, and we have a few business down here. Our name started Flora Farms, and that's what we're looking forward to start back up as Flora Farms, the green here again, and that's what we're focusing on.
Yeah, and so you talked about Jim Schirnbeck at the Downwinders at Risk, and I think didn't you get some help from Sierra Club and some of the other groups?
Yes, Dick and Chris have always been there for us and been really, really supportive. And they always call and follow up. They still call and follow up and see how I'm doing. Not only I got help from my pastor, which is Frederick Haynes of Friendship West Baptist Church, and then some of the faith leaders. You know, Wendell, is just amazing how people could see what you're going through. And I tell them that I'm so thankful because I didn't know them and they didn't know me. But to come to rescue on our side, you know, that's a blessing and that's a godsend to hear other voices come in and join and help us in this fight. And
Yeah,
I'm just thankful.
yeah, and it gives you validation. You know, it's
Right.
you then know that it's not just you, that other people are seeing what you're seeing and what you're experiencing, and I assume that once you got more people on your side, that you probably started getting a little better response from the city.
Exactly. You're right. We have some good supporters out there, you know, and some listening. I just don't think that some of them knew exactly how it was affecting us. I tell people all the time, I'm the heaviest I ever been in my whole life. That's because I'm having to take more medicine than I ever did in my life, you know. And just imagine what kind of effect that have on your body. I never went to a pulmonologist before in my whole life.
Right.
This was the first time I had to go. Instead of getting the ENT uh, reports and the examination, you know, instead of going up your nose and down to your vocal cords, it's not a happy feeling at all to continue going through
Mm.
there. So this fight is not just for saying there's something I'm doing. I want to do it. I didn't want to do it, but I do anything for my family when it comes to it. And I tell them the same thing. If it was your family, you would do the same thing. If it was your health, you'd be the first one out there on that line fighting. You know,
Oh yeah, it's amazing how once a politician, once it starts happening in their backyard, you know, they're screaming the loudest.
exactly. And my thing is, and a couple of them still call me. People don't know that I still have people on a horseshoe. They might not say it in public, but they call me and check on me. But I tell them that those mistakes been made. That this is the time that you come together, and then you have to fight for that to correct that wrong. And don't let this happen to anybody else because I don't want anybody else to suffer. I've been working in the community a long time, but I always stay behind in the back door. And my voice is not as strong as it used to be, but the little voice I still have, I want to fight the same way for the rest of them also. And
Well,
it also gave me a boost to go in and start studying for my doctorate of public administration. This gave me the experience that I can be able to discuss more issues with politicians in those offices also.
sure, your credibility is good, but that education will give you even more credibility.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
uh, it's like I say, it's incredible what you've been through, and I promise you that the whole environmental community, you know, definitely is proud of you, and I think that we're all a better team, you know, going forward. What are you working on now, other than your education? Do you have any other projects you're working on now?
We are, like I said, this is Flora Farms, and we want to see the greenery come back in here. I've been here a long time, and we started in Fort Florence, even with the rodeo, my kids rodeo, and that give them enough activity to go out there and start all the trouble. But also a Shingle Mountain property that we're hoping the city would take it. And my community has been working really good, and it's really good to have a network together.
Right.
That they drew the pictures what we would like to have. Would like to have a park over here. You know, I heard the man from Blue Star come over here. What they gonna put over there? A park? I would like to see that. That whole neighborhood was gross. It wasn't gross enough for you to bring your mess down here and leave it on us and harm our health like that. You know, but that's what we're working on. And plus 310 is another alternate route for 45, just like last week when
Yeah.
45 was a block down. This 310 is another route. So it'll be nice for the people to come in our city and in other neighborhoods to see this is a green area down here. And we're bringing our farms. We have 3 flora companies here in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So they're also looking like, and we steady fight to try to get the batch plants out of here because like Jonathan said, those pollutants are flying on their products. You know, they're killing their products also. They can't breathe, just like we can't breathe with this mess up here. You know, so those are areas that we're working on. We're working to try to keep the batch plants out and working on rezoning our area. We number 12 on the amortization to get our area rezoning. Our main focus is to get these 2 tracks next to me. My property is agricultural, but those are industrial, heavy industrial. So we're trying to get those rezoned immediately to keep that out of there. And our battle right now in this area is mostly trying to keep the polluters out of here.
Yeah.
I'm also on the lane plate and CAD committee, and that's another issue that we're working on and trying to get that place cleaned up because those are neighbors right next door also and right across the street. And lane plating is a heavy pollutant area also that need to be cleaned up instantly.
Yeah.
Also.
I'm sure you figured it out pretty quick, probably long before me, is that the polluters always pick the neighborhoods where they think they can just do whatever they want, and that the local residents won't be able to fight back. And
Yes,
that's why they picked your neighborhood, and why they picked Joppa and these other places to do their dirty work.
I think they just picked next door to me, but they didn't know it was old granny right next door that got a mouth. It won't stop.
Well, Marcia, you are so awesome. We appreciate you being our premier featured guest tonight. And we know you've got another Zoom you have to go to,
Thank
but we appreciate you being on with us. And Julie, did we have any questions that came in?
We did have one question. It's from Julie in Texas, and I believe that's Julie Ryan. She says, "Hi, Marcia. When our bus tour with General Honore of the visited you 2 years ago, the asphalt smell was overpowering. We saw how close to the creek it was and was wondering if air testing or water testing was ever done."
You know, Julie, we've been trying to get them tests that property, and we never did. But actually, right in I guess you all knew that I filed a RCRA complaint against them, which it was dismissed. And I knew it was going to be, I figured it was going to be dismissed because the property has been cleaned. And when you file those federal complaints, and I know you know, Wendell, that you have to have something on there to even argue about. But since it's clean, there's nothing there. But it was an open record, was pulled. And then my property is right at the end of that creek. And they did find out in the open records request that I have pollutants also on my property, that they're supposed to have been working and clean that out. So those the main focus of that creek that they was going to test, but we never did get any answer on that either.
Well, let's hope it ends up being a beautiful park and restores a little bit of the loveliness to your neighborhood. And like I say, you have to know that you always have friends in the entire environmental community. We're always there for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Marcia. And like I say, we'll let you go on to your deal. And before we go to our next speaker, I have a couple of items for our Tree Huggers Fireside Chat. First, this is from Kirk Miller, who is the new editor of the Dallas Sierra Club newsletter. and also a world-class limerick writer. And I want to read at least two of Kirk's very short but wonderful limericks. These 5 lines are a simple plea. I sure hope that you will agree that we need to take care of our air and water. Planet Earth means the world to me. And then finally, I don't want to talk trash and lambast you for discarding things in poor taste. I am certain that you know the right thing to do. Not recycling is just a big waste. Kirk has been a long time member of the Dallas Sierra Club and very important to that club. And we appreciate that. Plus, I think, well, hopefully we have Renee on. And Renee, I don't think I'm going to let too big of a cat out of the bag, but Renee is working on a wonderful, a new book about climate change and not taking care of planet Earth. And I wanted to read at least one part of her, the prelude to her new book. The past had waited too long to change, and the future could no longer wait. Read that one more time. The past had waited too long to change, and the future could no longer wait. I think that's sending a message to all of us that, you know, we better start changing our ways now. There's no plan B. There's no plan B in this world unless we're going to Mars with SpaceX. There's no plan B. We need to quit fouling our nest, or we will, we will suffer the consequences.
I'm here on the call. Just I'm flattered
Oh,
you
hey,
read
Renee.
it was mostly for your amusement, but I am working on a science fiction novel, and it's kind of futuristic, but at the same time I'm saying science fiction, but it's kind of real right now. But I'm flattered that you read it. I just hope you all get are amused by it, to get a kick out of it. If you read the whole thing, I think if you have time, if you read the whole thing, I think that people will see how deep it really is. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and you now, have you finished? Is the book finished, or are you still in the middle of the book itself?
Oh no, I'm starting. I'm just starting,
okay.
but that's a prelude from it. And then I'm going to keep going. I don't know if I'm scared to make it too long, because if it's too long, people will not be interested. But I think I'm going to make it a novel, but it'll be something that's enjoyable. It won't be highbrow. It'll just be a mirror as we look at ourselves, because we have an opportunity to change things, and we're not doing that real well.
Yeah, that's I think a mirror is a good word. Renee is the co-chair with Victoria, Dallas Sierra Club Conservation Committee, and we.
Wendell, to correct you. Wendell, I'm sorry to correct you. Renee is my co-chair of programs.
Oh.
I, by my lonesome, am Conservation Ecoaction chair. Just to set the record straight.
No, that's correct.
So you mean she can work with you, but just sort of?
She is the peas to my carrot. We talk all the time. She is.
That's all right. I'm pulling your leg. Victoria, you'll get to talk in just a few minutes, so you can repay it. Before we go on to our next guest, I do want to read one more thing. As most of the people on this call know, that I'm a serious bookaholic. There is a new book out by Terry Tempest Williams called The Hour of Land. If I can get that in front, The Hour of Land. Well, there we go. And she's a very popular and well-versed environmental writer for many years. And I wanted to read just part of her book before we move on to Amy. And the book is about the national park system and what it means, not necessarily the nuts and bolts of it, but what is the meaning of our national park system. And Terry Tempest Williams says this: "To this day, my spiritual life is found inside the heart of the wild. I do not fear it, I court it. When I am away, I anticipate my return, needing to touch stone, rock, water, the trunks of trees, the sway of grasses, the barbs of a feather, the fur left behind by a shedding bison. I think maybe the hardest thing about COVID for me and a lot of us is that it at least for a while, separated us from nature. It separated us from our friends, our family, and from nature. But I think about halfway through, it was figured out that we were all safer in nature than we were, at the local whatever. And so I'm hoping that we will all be able to get back on our outings and do things together outside, so that we can touch the trunk of the trees. And I just think that's a sentiment that we need to embrace tonight. So we are ready to move on to our next guest, and our next guest is Amy Martin. Are you with us, Amy?
I think,
Yes.
okay, starting my
Fine.
video.
That's fine. We have Amy.
Lots of little things to click.
I
Hey
believe me,
there.
I understand, and this is our first show, so we are trying to do our best also. Amy is one of our writers at Green Source DFW. She's also a published and accomplished author, and she has a new book. And I will turn it over to Amy to tell us about Wild DFW.
Hey there. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on here. Wild DFW is in the making. It is, I have to turn it in sometime in August. I hope to make that deadline. I'm cutting it real close. I have just been having the best time talking with experts all over North Texas and letting them download their knowledge into me. I have learned so much about snakes and insects and mammals and birds. I've learned so much that I thought that I knew, but I didn't know completely about the ecosystems in which we live, the ecoregions in which we live. And it has just been a wonderful discovery. I am so excited about digesting all of this info and transmitting it to the public with all these fabulous photographs that I'm collecting from area photographers. And some of these folks are just really totally professional level photography in this book. It's going to be so nice looking. It's going to come out on Timber Press sometime in 2022. And it takes 9 months for them to lay out a book and proof it and get it into stores. It is the follow-up to a popular book that they put out called Wild Los Angeles or Wild LA. And it sold pretty well. And it made them realize that there was a big market for people writing about urban nature. As it turns out, their big author at Timber Press is Doug Tallamy. And Doug Tallamy is known for the New York Times bestselling book, Nature's Best Hope, which talks about how to turn your backyard into habitat for wildlife and pollinators and help preserve water quality and many other things that you can do just with your property. So I'm very, very proud to be associated with Timber Press and their extreme commitment to nature that they exemplify in every single one of their books. So Wild LA sold well. And so they thought, well, let's do a Wild series. So in Texas, there's going to be a Wild Dallas-Fort Worth, a Wild Houston, and most likely a Wild Austin, although I haven't had confirmation of that. They're going to be doing a Wild series for most of the big metropolitan areas, which I think is a good thing to do this. It's a quirky little book. You know, it's not supposed to be the be all and end all to North Texas nature, but just kind of distills it down so that my goal is that people who are new to nature will get excited and have enough information to where they can go and appreciate nature and experience it. But also I am making sure that there is enough interesting, hard to find information in there that even hardcore naturalists are going to find interesting things to read in this book, and they're going to see things in a different way that they might not have known before. The first part of the book is kind of covers our natural history and ecoregion. So, for instance, people don't realize very much, people realize that we are in an ecotone. We are where the great eastern hardwood forests end in East Texas, Louisiana, East Texas. And from there, it's a transition to get to the very arid plains. And the Dallas-Fort Worth, North Texas region is that ecotone that transits us from a very wet, wooded environment to one that is arid and has rather few or very scrappy trees. You'll get to know the Trinity River, probably as you've never known it before, because I look at each of the forks and the nature along it and the nature, the quality of that fork, because each fork is very different from each other. And then there's the main stem of the Trinity. You'll also get to know the creeks, some of the larger creeks in North Texas, because the book is organized around the forks of the Trinity and the major creeks in North Texas. So the first half of the book, it includes stuff on weather, geology, what you can do in your backyard, what happens in nature after dark, all of the activities in citizen science. It takes a good look at migration. It looks at native species and invasive species. It's a general primer to North Texas ecology. Then there's this really quirky 105 species, don't know why, 105 species of plants, animals, bugs, mammals, everything. I can only select 105. There's thousands in North Texas of plants and animals. And so it's a quirky little field guide, but it's enough to where the animals that I mentioned in my copy, you can go to that field guide and learn more about them, is the idea. And then the last third of the book, I'm so incredibly proud of, because it covers 25 hiking adventures in North Texas. And we're talking Dallas, Tarrant, Denton, and Collin counties is the North Texas region. And it was hard to pick out just 25. I wanted to do 50 at least, but I'm focusing on 25 from all these 4 counties. And I take each hike with someone who knows the park or preserve the best. And these are often the volunteers of these parks, occasionally the managers of state and other parks. And to be able to see the park through their eyes is truly a gift. For instance, there was a trail at Lake Lewisville Environmental Learning Center. I've hiked it multiple times, but then I hiked it with Scott Keister, and it's a brand new trail. He pointed out things to me I never noticed before, like how the Eastern Cross timbers and the Blackland Prairie have this feather edge, and you can literally go back and forth between them in a span of 30 yards. And you watch all of the plants and all the wildlife change as it does. It's just a fantastic experience to see nature through the eyes of these people who are its stewards, like Joe Johnson, who has created all the trails and maintains the trails at Goat Island Preserve. Fantastic. Has no formal training, but nobody knows more about rivers than Joe. And I was just so honored to walk that preserve with him. So I've tried to pick out not the wildest preserves, but to give a spread of preserves that goes everything from, if you need to be on a paved trail and you need to keep nature at a distance, because that's what your comfort level is, I've got trails for you. If you have mobility impairment and you need true ADA trails or car tours or van rides through parks, I've got that in the book too. Dirt trails, and a lot of the chapters have what I call a Go Wild section, where basically I do the basic trails and then I say, but if you want to go wild and go off trail, here's how you can do it and do it safely. And this section has a primer on how you can hike and not get lost in the woods, in the wild, just by using Google Maps. That's all you need to keep from being lost. I recommend GPS units, but Google Maps will get you there. So I probably talked for about 10 minutes, I think.
No, you're fine. No, but I was going to say, Amy, you certainly will not be the first author that has missed their deadline. And, I think probably your publisher might fall over if you turn it in on time.
That's quite true. I think they did give me a shortened deadline with that in mind, that I would get it in by October if they said August.
Yeah. Did you end up choosing the Cedar Ridge Nature Preserve down in the Cedar Hill area?
Yes, we have I have a section called the Great Southwest Escarpment. In fact, it's the only section that's not technically based on a creek or a river. And I'm covering Cedar Ridge Preserve, and I'm hiking it with the fellow that does the prairie restoration there, Tom Willard, and then the manager is going to take me on another trail. But I'm also covering Dogwood Canyon, which is what, half mile away, maybe?
Yeah, close by.
And gosh, there's another one down there that I'm covering. And then I also have a thing called Nearby, to where I let people know what's nearby that they can go see. So for instance, Cedar Ridge Preserve, and we're going to be covering this in the chapter, I cover some of the problems that these parks are right. undergoing. You know, we talk frankly about it. And Cedar Ridge Preserve is being loved to death. Absolutely loved to death. There's no admission charge. And people are using it not for nature appreciation, but for fitness training. Yeah. So they're out there running the trails and stopping and doing exercise. And they're not really getting what Cedar Ridge Preserve is supposed to be about, which is a wildlife preserve. And so Cedar Ridge Preserve is being loved to death. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. And I offer an alternative, which is Prayer Mountain or Big Cedar, which is a DORBA, a Dallas Off-Road Bicycle Association preserve. That's, I don't know, quarter mile away.
That's very close.
And so I try to give options. For instance, Dogwood Canyon, it just opened a new trail. So this will include a hike to the Dogwoods Trail, which is a spur off the top loop trail. But I'm also going to be covering Cedar Mountain Preserve, which is basically an unknown preserve next door that has about 2 miles of hiking trails. And it's a pretty decent little preserve.
Good. Did you notice that there's increased diversity of economic and people of color? Have you noticed an increase in those numbers at any of your trails?
Well, I tell you, Cedar Ridge Preserve at a Cedar Hill, when I was hiking, they have a paved trail system. Cedar Hill is a fascinating story because their city manager has made a vow to keep 30% of Cedar Hill in green space. You know, and they have these big preserves, Dogwood, Cedar Ridge, and others, and they have the state park, Cedar Hill State Park. So they are expanding on that, and they're putting in a trail system. And on that trail system that connects these, I saw nothing but African Americans on those trails. And I am seeing more diversity at almost all of the parks. And I have fortunately never seen any bad behavior towards anyone at these parks. I really appreciate the work of Trust for the Public Land, which is making a very concerted effort. And this is someone who Marcia should make acquaintance with, and she can email me for their direct contact. But Trust for the Public Land has a commitment right now of making parks happen in underserved areas. And they're just opening up 2 parks in South Dallas along Alice Branch and Brushy Creek, I think. And it's really exciting stuff. These are very well thought out parks that keep in mind all of the different people who want to use the park. You know, that there's people who want to walk for fitness, there's people who want to contemplate, people who want to bike ride, there's kids, there's old people. And they try to make sure that each of their parks hits all of those contingents. Very exciting work going on with Trust for the Public Land.
Yeah, and I think we all in the environmental community, we need to recognize this as an educational opportunity. We need to find ways, you know, and thinking of Cedar Ridge, you know, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people there every Saturday and Sunday, and they're not there for a you know, maybe not for a nature experience, but we need to make it that way. We need to make it a nature experience and give them some environmental education and how to preserve it, you know, for their own future and for the rest of the neighborhood.
An astounding 600,000 people visit Cedar Ridge Preserve every year. 600,000.
That's like a big, yeah.
That's like what a national park receives.
Yeah, for a small,
and yet they're
small
doing
national
it,
park.
They're doing it on donations and volunteers. So that has to shift at some point in the future.
Yeah, is the Audubon Society still doing Cedar Ridge?
They're one of 3 partners. I think most of the land belongs to Dallas County Open Space.
Okay.
And Cedar and Dallas Audubon is more the managing operator of the park.
Okay.
And we're the only county in Texas, one of the few in the nation that has 2 Audubon centers. We have Dogwood Canyon and Trinity River Audubon.
Good.
So they're powerful.
Julie, do we have any questions for Amy?
No, not now. We do not have-
You obviously answered all the questions. Well, Amy, we love having you a writer at Green Source DFW, and we certainly appreciate your time coming on our inaugural show. But we will all look forward to your book, and we'll look forward to Renee's book. And will it be RAI and Barnes and Noble, sort of the usual suspects?
All of that stuff, and at all the gift stores at all of the parks and preserves that have visitor centers and stuff, they'll be carrying it. And if you want a kind of a vicarious thrill, at facebook.com/wilddfw, every Friday I post cell phone photos from my hiking trips. And this is a very excellent way to get to know some of these trails, because I give you enough information to where you can go and see that trail. The chapter will have much more information and professional photos. But facebook.com/wilddfw will get you hiking trips every Friday.
Very good.
Oh, we
All
do have
right.
a question. Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
We do have a question from Christy Kerr Leonard. She's asked, for all of the outdoor adventures, field trips, which ones were a hidden gem?
The hidden gem. I would say the crazy trip to Homer Simpson Lake. Everybody knows where Bonton Farms is, and that's the trailhead for the Buckeye Trails. And the Buckeye Trails is the Ned and Jeannie Fritz Texas Buckeye Trail. It was named for these incredible eco-activists that basically assured that the Great Trinity Forest was allowed to continue. We owe it to them and their work. And Christy, in fact, is leading a project to rehabilitate the Buckeye Trails, because there's a paved trail and then there's a whole bunch of dirt trails that need a little bit of work. And that whole area is something I call the Bonton Woods. And I had this fun hiking day with one of my favorite hiking partners, Scott Hudson, and my favorite photographer, Daniel Coughlin. And we went down the dike from the Buckeye Trail entrance, and then went down the dike and to Bart Simpson Lake, which if you look at it from an aerial photo, it's the shape of his head. And we just had the most fun walking around that lake, looking at these incredible birds, looking at this large male deer that was kind of keeping an eye on us. And then we walked through these really dense woods, through areas that people hardly ever walk in, and eventually found the dirt Buckeye Trails. And I just thought that was the most fun thing. I think the other one that really sticks with me, to give something on the west side of the Metroplex, is Southwest Nature Preserve. It is in Southwest Arlington in Tarrant County. It sits on top of a cuesta, which is a kind of a limestone hill, and it is just gorgeous. It is so beautiful with ponds and elevation changes and wonderful plants, and it's a perfect preserved example of Eastern Cross timbers, which is not easy to find. And it's a very interesting place to hike because you kind of think, these trees are short. And then you realize that, well, actually they're 100 years old. It just takes a while to grow through limestone. And there's a huge tree on top of the hill called the Caddo Oak, and it's at least 200 years old. And Green Source did a wonderful story on it a few years back. So stop me, I'll talk all day.
No,
Sorry.
no, just somebody was Liz was asking, Liz Whelan just got off work and got on with us. What was the name of that last one you were just talking about?
Southwest Nature Preserve.
Okay.
And they have a wonderful friends group with a great website on it. Look for the Friends of Southwest Nature Preserve.
Okay.
And just to touch on diversity outreach, next Wednesday at the North Texas Master Naturalist Zoom meeting that we have the first Wednesday of every month, and you can find the information on our Facebook page or online. And we are going to be having as our speaker David Buggs, who is the diversity officer for Texas Parks and Wildlife. And he'll be talking about programs that Texas Park and Wildlife, Audubon, Sarah Club, and other people have been doing to make sure that everyone has access to nature and everyone feels comfortable in nature. And some of the stories that he's seen, some of the ways that he has crafted positive outcomes from situations that could have been really not positive. It's going to be a great talk.
Awesome. Well, I will tell you, all of our listeners tonight, we will have a hiking, camping, parkaholic every single month. We'll be talking about the outdoors with different guests throughout the year. So Amy, you're our kickoff, but this will be a theme that will be repeated every single month. And I think, again, getting us all out of quarantine and out on the trail is going to be a really good thing. Thank you again, Amy.
You're welcome.
Do we have Rita yet, or should we go to Victoria? Do we have Rita?
See you, Rita.
Rita Beving, sorry.
Yes, we're getting her ready.
Oh, excellent. Good, good. Well, put on your makeup and get her from the green room, from the rock star room.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hi everybody. I'm gonna probably seem like Debbie Downer compared to the last two people that you've heard, because as you guys know, I work at the Texas legislature for Public Citizen and for a group I created called Texas Landowners for Eminent Domain Reform. And as usual, our legislature has put very challenging bills out there. And I want to talk to you guys about some of them. I put my email in the chat because on Saturdays, I have a legislative call. Sometimes it lasts up to 2 hours. Sometimes it lasts an hour and a half. But we need you guys to help combat some of these bad bills that are down at the legislature. And I want to talk about some of those tonight, especially in light of the fact that some of you know I've worked on the Dallas Climate Plan with Molly Rook of DFW, Dallas350.org, excuse me, and other groups, Sierra Club and others, to get this climate plan off the ground. And so there are bills out there that threaten it down at the legislature because the oil and gas contingent is quite large at the legislature. So I want to tell you guys about some of these bills. If you have a pen handy, you may want to write down some of these numbers. I put my email in the chat. You can email me and I can send you a link to the Zoom call this weekend, or you can get some of the alerts that I know some of the folks that are on this list already get them. The first bill I want to bring up, which just passed out of the Senate yesterday, I call it the Climate Plan Killer Bill, is SB 1261 by Senator Birdwell from Granbury. The reason why I call it the Climate Plan Killer Bill is it was a broad and sweeping bill that basically said only the state has jurisdiction over greenhouse gas emissions, and that jurisdiction preempts any local ordinances. So what that bill would basically do is allow all sorts of entities to challenge the climate measures, not only in the Dallas Climate Plan, but the Houston Climate Plan, the Austin Climate Plan, San Antonio's, and it would put a chilling effect on cities like Plano and Lewisville that are thinking about a climate plan. What it would mean is, for instance, years ago, there was a green cement policy passed in Dallas. Cement companies could sue over that. Builders could challenge building codes in the city. You name it, anything that had to do with the indirect and the direct regulation of any kind of emission could be challenged. Now, the only good news is, thanks to Cyrus Reed of Sierra Club, the chapter interim director, Cyrus was able to convince Senator Birdwell to take out the word indirect. So now the bill states that it only has to do with direct emissions. Well, the good news is, I would say there's probably nothing in the climate plan that directly regulates emissions. It's all indirect. So that's the good news, even though this bill passed out of the Senate and is now moving to the House next week. Now, I should back up a minute and tell y'all there's only 6 weeks left in the session. Any House bills that have been filed need to be out of their respective committees by May 12th or they die. They can't go any further. Senate bills have a little longer on that time frame, but the last day of session is May 31st or Memorial Day. So it gets faster and faster as time goes on. And this is just one of the bills that we're working to kill with other environmental groups. Another bill that is smaller that's passed the House and was just heard in the Senate Business and Commerce Committee on, I believe it was the 15th, is HB 17, House Bill 17 by Deschantel. And that bill, again, is a bill to restrict cities from restricting any kind of energy source to be used or delivered. Well, when this bill, I was in the committee when this bill was heard, and Deschantel, who's a Democrat from Beaumont, specifically mentioned Austin and Dallas. And I think he was misinformed. Austin is going to move toward electrical hookups for new residential construction. Dallas has not stated that. Although, of course, we're going to encourage electric hookups for new residences because we want to lower the use of natural gas, because we need to cut fossil fuels if we're going to cut greenhouse gas emissions. Well, unfortunately, this bill has passed the House. It's already been heard in the Senate. There were companion bills by Senator Birdwell, SB 1262, and that bill is also moving at this time. So we're concerned about this bill getting to the finish line by the end of session. So I just want to mention that to everyone. Keep that on your radar. Another crazy bill that got reported out yesterday out of committee is HB 610 by Swanson. She's from West Texas, a Republican. And she wants to put out a bill where if a city passes an ordinance or a rule that affects anyone with a state license beyond what rules the state has, let's say it's TCQ or for that matter, this is broad and sweeping. It can affect many kinds of businesses. If you're a business with a state license and locally Dallas would try to have an ordinance or a rule that affects you, you could sue them. And so let me give you how broad and sweeping this is. If Dallas had an ordinance that affected a sex business that had to be licensed, they could sue us. If you were regulating a hairdresser or a cosmetologist, they could sue us. Developers and builders could sue you over building codes. The bill is, as crazy as that sounds, it passed out of committee yesterday. So that is a bill we're going to watch and try and kill. The good news is it's only gotten out of its House committee, and it has to go through what a committee we call calendars, which votes bills to be heard onto the floor. Then it would have to pass the House, go to the Senate, go to the Senate committee that's respective to the one it's in now, and pass the Senate. So it's a little bit behind on the timeline of things. So we're hoping to kill that bill as well. One bill I want to mention to everyone that we call it the Berkshire Hathaway bill or the Warren Buffett bill is SB 2109. And I don't know how many of you read the Texas Tribune, but it is probably well read by anybody who lobbies at the legislature or anybody who is a legislator. It is a free online newspaper, and they cover a lot of politics. It's very good. The writing is very good. And they had a great article about this Berkshire Hathaway bill. The bill looks like, on its face value, that it deals with what consumers should know in light of the electric grid disaster we all faced. But in fact, what it also does is it opens up, it opens the door for Warren Buffett to build 10 natural gas plants in Texas to the tune of $8.3 billion, which would charge you as consumers for the loan, so to speak, that Warren would give us to build those gas plants. It would show in your monthly electric bill, not only if you're a residential user, but if you're a commercial or an industrial user every single month for X amount of years. So that bill was offered up by Senator Schwertner, and it was left pending last week on the 15th down at the legislature. So we're all watching that very closely. Here's the good news. All the electric utility providers hate this bill and ironically find it as unfair competition to their established businesses in the state of Texas. So the good news is, I can't believe it, but we have utilities and environmentalists fighting the same bill. One bill that I wanted to mention that should be close to Wendel's heart, as he owns a hybrid, and my husband owns a hybrid, owns Priuses. There are several bills that would affect y'all as consumers if you have electric or hybrid car. There were 7 bills filed this session to put charges on annually on every registration that you have with your hybrid or electric vehicle annually. An interim study was done by the legislature, and its findings claimed that hybrid and EV electric vehicle users do not pay their fair share of road taxes or gas taxes to help refurbish and build roads. So a number of legislators have put out these bills that would charge an annual fee. On the lower end of these 7 bills is HB 2221 by Canales. It was reported out of committee 2 days ago. And what that would do is it would put an annual charge of $100 on an electric vehicle and $80 on a hybrid. Some of the bills that are more expensive that just were heard, Wednesday, or Tuesday rather, I'm sorry. HB 2986 by Martinez would charge, you would have to pay $300 annually if your hybrid or EV was over 10,000 pounds, and $200 if your EV or hybrid was under 10,000 pounds. Likewise, Ken King has HB 427. That would be $200 on an electric vehicle and $100 on a hybrid. There's 2 other bills that would charge $200 on a vehicle if it was less than 6,000 pounds and $250 if it's over 6,000 pounds. Now, guys, what concerns me about these bills is there's 7 of them. And when there's a lot of bills on one topic, that pretty much means that they're, pardon my saying it this way, but they're hell bent for leather of getting one of these bills passed. A couple of these bills won't move because there's already 4 bills moving. So, you know, some of my friends and I joke, well, maybe we all need to write our legislators and say they need to pay a pollution tax on their diesel vehicles, etc. Right? Because the reason why we all drive, I don't have a hybrid, but the reason why a lot of us drive hybrids is because we're lowering our carbon footprint and we're doing what we can to lower the use of fossil fuels. And we also like the gas mileage. So if you want to know more about those bills, I'm going to be talking about them Saturday on my 3:30 call. Again, feel free to take my email from the chat and email me in that regard. Those are the bills I want to talk to that relate to climate indirectly. But I also want to say this to you. There are, to not totally end this on a downer, there are some good bills in batches that were filed down at the legislature and that are moving. Some of you may be wondering, what are they doing to fix the electric grid after that disaster we had in February? Well, I'll give you an example. There's some bills that are filed that would require weatherization of facilities. In 2011, when the last electric disaster happened, there were bills filed for winterization, but they only made it voluntary. So I think the legislature got the message, and they now have a bill out there that would make it mandatory. Some of you have heard about the variable rate plans where people have gotten $6,000, $7,000, $13,000 electric bills.
It looks like Rita's screen is, internet is frozen. So we lost her connection. Oh, there she's back.
Okay, that was weird. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, the Electric Reliability Council about having, believe it or not, guys, these groups, ERCOT, the PUC or the Public Utilities Commission, and the transmission folks don't really talk very well together. So they're going to form some kind of disaster council. Unfortunately, along with that, there are bills offered by Senator Hancock from North Richland Hills to punish wind and solar providers because they are what we call not dispatchable. In other words, if the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, they aren't going to dispatch power. So Hancock and some other legislators have filed bills to somewhat punish wind and solar, saying you're going to have to pay for ancillary services. You're going to have to, another bill says you're going to have to file an analysis to justify your existence on the grid. Those are some of the bad bills that have been filed, and you can bet it's to help oil and gas. Another set of bills that were just heard the other day, and I was so proud of the folks from West Dallas that came down to testify. There's got to be about 20 some bills filed on aggregates, meaning concrete batch plants, whom many of us have dealt with, and also aggregate mining. Fracking needs sand. And so there's been a lot of mining operations that have been springing up all over the place. And finally, I heard the mayor of Marble Falls in committee the other day talk about how upset he is that residents in Marble Falls are surrounded by mining operations. And it's really destroying their quality of life. And it's not just the towns of Marble Falls, it's rural people having to deal with mining next door, etc. But I'm very excited for some of these bills because it would finally require monitoring, lighting, noise control on concrete batch plants and other things. So there are good things going on. As usual, the environmental community is most worried about the bills we have to play defense on. So with that, I'll stop because I've got 348 bills I monitor. So.
Rita, obviously this is the time of year that we depend on you and Cyrus and the Texas Tribune to keep us updated. I just have one question before we move on to Victoria. Mm-hmm. Do you think the best way to contact your ledge person is email or phone or like a real letter? What do you think actually somebody down there might read?
Well, here's the thing, Wendell, and thanks for asking that. The thing is, if the bill's not on the floor, then there's no point contacting your local legislature. You got to contact the group of people affiliated with the bill at the moment. Like if it's in Natural Resource Committee, you have to contact those 8 or 9 people. If it's in environmental regulation, it's that 8 or 9 people. So that's why it's good to maybe email me, and I'll get you all some alerts, because it has to go through the right committee or the floor or the House or Senate to make those contacts. But I'm telling you, we are now what I call during the crazy time of the legislature. And I am telling a lot of the folks that get my alerts, forget email, call the offices. And I know it's a pain to call 9 offices, but I often tell them, call at night when no one's there and just say, I oppose this bill, and this bill in your environmental regulation committee. Please vote no. And then you don't have to talk to anyone. And you just leave your name, address, and phone number. And then when the staff comes in the morning, they have to clear all those messages. They check off who's calling about what bills. The thing about emails as we get later in the session is this. The later when it's emails, you often get one of those standard form letters that say, thank you for contacting our office. We probably cannot reply right now, and blah, 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 blah. So I say calling at this juncture from here on out is the best way.
Okay, I think somebody just asked a question about faxes. Would faxes?
Faxes are great too, because you know what? They have to collect all those faxes off the fax machine or that come into their office. I would say phone first, fax second, and email third.
Good. Thank you, Rita. You're wonderful. Sure. You're doing God's work down there, and we appreciate it at an incredible level. And,
all right. Well, thanks, Wendell. Thanks for having me.
Okay, good. And I guess they must still have fax machines down there.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. You know, I'm probably willing to say most of the legislature's over the age of 60, so they have fax machines.
Good.
Not to date anybody.
All right. Well, I did notice, and Victoria, you'll be up next. I did notice that we have a very special guest listening to us from Tyler. My good friend Lori Allen is the new general manager of the NPR station from the University of Texas at Tyler. And she has been listening in, and we are all hopeful at Green Source on the Air to eventually be able to move into public radio and obviously maybe be on KERA someday. But Lori's been listening from Tyler, and we appreciate her taking her valuable time. And that radio station will be launching hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So we will have another, and I believe they are carrying, Rita. I think they're going to be carrying Texas Tribune, because that really
all right.
That's
the other show I love is the Texas Standard every morning. It's great.
So just another source to really to really get the message out on these important issues. All right, Victoria Howard, are you out of the green room?
I am out of the green room.
All right, tell us what's going on at Dallas Sierra Club.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be here on your inaugural show. And I am privileged to be amongst such wonderful women advocates who all spoke tonight so wonderfully. I thought, as today is Earth Day, which happy Earth Day, everyone, that we would talk about not only the Dallas Sierra Club's Conservation and Ecoaction Committee, but about some Earth Day resolutions everyone could adopt for the year going forward. Much like our New Year's resolutions, we all try to do something different in the year ahead. So let me start by telling you who we are at Conservation and Ecoaction. our group covers a multitude of environmental issues and advocacy in the North Texas area. We help with urban gardens. We help petition city governments for better recycling programs. We have styrofoam recycling drop-offs. We are working with Superfund sites. Miss Marcia mentioned lane plating. There's also the Globe Union Battery site that the EPA is now testing over in Garland. We work with ecopreneurs. We have high school groups, you name it, we do it. And so my suggestion would be for anyone that wants to do something different environmentally within the next year would be to consider joining us on committee. There is no litmus test to be a member. You can be a teenager, you can be an octogenarian. Everyone is welcome and there is a place for you. So that being said, one of the most important jobs that we have need of in conservation is members from communities around North Texas to clue us in with what's going on in their neighborhoods. This can be, city council meetings. This can be neighborhood Facebook pages. This can be anything that gives us in the environmental community a heads up of possible situations that need to be addressed. It's so much easier if we can come and help in an environmental situation early rather than late. So final plug for conservation, big or small, we do it all. You are welcome to contact me with any questions, Victoria@DallasSierraClub.org. My phone number and information are up on our Dallas Sierra Club website, www.DallasSierraClub.org. And I would welcome anyone's help or participation, or I'm happy to answer any questions. So again, thank you, Wendell, for allowing me to be here.
Great. Well, Victoria, a couple things. One is everyone needs to be on the lookout for any of these urban garden issues. I think urban gardens are going to be the hot topic this year and in years to come. I think Renee is also involved heavily with the urban garden movement because we're finding not only that people like growing their own food and knowing what pesticides are not put on them, but we're also finding out that this is a great way to build community, especially in underserved areas and housing projects and other ways that they really do. They come together in the garden and a lot of good things happen. And so, in fact, that'll be on our agenda for May. We're going to we'll have an urban garden section. And one other thing you said about high school kids, do we know if Sahan, is Sahan on tonight? Do we know if I didn't see his name, but I don't see everybody. But tell us about Sahan and his group of students.
Yes, so Sahan is a member of our conservation committee, and he is actually the leader of our Sierra Club high school committee. And so Sahan and his local high school in Capel has 15 members where they are advocating to turn their high school green to the extent there would be composting, solar energy, no styrofoam in the cafeterias, so on and so forth. And Sahan's high school group is a model, kind of the charter group of what we would like to bring to every high school in North Texas, is the opportunity for their environmentally minded students to come collectively together and have a voice with the Dallas Sierra Club. So if anyone is interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me or Sahan. He's also on our website, and we will gladly help get that going.
It's awesome just to have him. And he's actually joined the executive committee. He's our youngest executive committee member ever, but he's our secretary. He's shown such dedication and such wisdom way beyond his years. So, we've all seen, us octogenarians, we've all seen that it sometimes skips generations for whatever reason, environmental activism, but we really are seeing it now that this group of young college kids and the and junior high and high school, they are vitally interested in the future of our planet. Imagine that. So that is really good. And Victoria, you are also a rising superstar in the environmental movement, and we appreciate all of your incredible hard work. So, all right, I think
Thank you, Wendell.
you're so welcome. Do we have any other questions that have come up, Julie, before we start playing music?
No, we don't.
Okay, that is so wonderful. And we appreciate everybody that's taken time. We're going to do this once a month. We'll have a different focus every single month. And so watch your Green Source DFW notices and notices from Dallas Sierra Club and other ways that you get your green news. And I appreciate it.